Danny Flexon here for SecondsOut. Delighted to be joined by my old friend Barry Jones. Barry, how you doing, mate?
I'm right, mate. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you for a while.
I've been in hiding, but I'm back out now, as you can understand. But we won't talk about that on camera. Big fight that we're looking forward to today, press conference for Anthony Joshua's rematch with Dillian Whyte. Or you could call it a trilogy if you include the amateurs. What do you make of it at this stage of their careers? It seemed to take a long time to get it over the line.
Yeah, I think it's the fight they both need. I think for Dillian Whyte's point, it's a fight over Joshua, who's still a big name and still top 5 in the world. It puts him right back in the conversation of other big fights. Without that, if he gets a defeat, and if it's a bad defeat for Whyte, it's hard to see where those big money fights come. He's going not cap in hand as such, but he's definitely the B-side in any other fight. And for Joshua, it's the fight that he needs and we need to see where he is mentally. Because I think the way that Whyte fights, he'll force Joshua to commit to his attacks. And that's been the biggest problem for Joshua since Ruiz won, really, that he hasn't been fully committed to his offense. He's been boxing well in stages. He boxed really well in the second Ruiz fight. He boxed pretty good in the Franklin fight, I thought, as well. And even in those two Usyk fights, which he clearly lost, he didn't box terrible. No. But he's not boxing to his strengths, and he's not using what he has. And I think that commitment he had to when he had you, he was always a thoughtful boxer. I have to say, our memory of Joshua being this wrecking machine was never quite that. But when he had you on the rails, when he had you hurt, he could finish you. He committed to his punches, and that's lacked since Ruiz won. But I think Whyte's the sort of guy who will force him to do that, because if he doesn't, he might get knocked out. So I think it's a perfect fight for them both.
Do you think that's a direct result of Ruiz one, in that he did dive in to finish the fight and that's when he got caught?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, and the way they regrouped in the second, they boxed the right fight in the second fight. They did. A man who's, but I say this, and it's sort of a strange comment, but you want to teach a fighter new tricks. You want to open a fighter's brain. You want to teach him how to do hone what he does well, and try and do things better than what he couldn't do, or try and add to his game constantly. But if you add in stuff to his game and he's taking things away that he's good at, then you can't do it. And once you give a guy knowledge, or a female side, once you give a boxer knowledge, you can't take that away from him. And what they realised they made Anthony stay safe. Now, his first thought now when he throws a punch is, am I safe? Which is good for someone like me, but for him, he's got to be, I've got you. And you, when you're always overthinking, you're never going to fully commit, because you're always aware of something coming back, and that's where he feels a bit hesitant and a bit wary of what's coming back at him at all times, which is a good thing. But in his division, and when you have his strength and his power, if you're not committing, you're wasting. And the jab is what it is. The jab for him, he doesn't step in with the jab, and then the right hand, when he throws it, is lacking the venom that it once had. He's not punching through the target. He's hitting the target, but not touching it, because he's an 18-stone monster. But he's not that it used to be. It's not threatening enough to make the fighter panic. I think that's where we're at.
And now he's with quite an aggressive-minded coach in Derek James. This will be their second fight together. Is that change enough to rediscover that, I don't want to say killer instinct, because it is a serious sport, but you know what I mean, that ruthlessness?
No, it's a horrible term to use, but I think it's apt, because you have to go in there and want to destroy the guy, especially in their division, of all divisions. And I think you need an aggressive trainer, but I don't think it's complicated what you have to do with Anthony. I don't. No, I've never trained anyone in my life, but I don't think it's to get that stepping in with the left hand. Once he does that correctly and strongly and positively, then everything will work off that, because he has good technique. He does turn from the hip from the core when he throws his punches. He is correct and neat. He does punch inside his body frame. He doesn't make mistakes. He's not like Dillian Whyte where he swings and commits to everything. He's everything correct. But without that solid jab, it's all wasted. So that's all he needs to do. But I think it's all here, not physical. It's all mental with him. He has to believe and get to a state where if I hit you before you hit me, you're in trouble. And he's not there yet. So.
Now, Dillian's not been on the best run of form recently. He's had a lot of hard fights as well. But he'll know that he can hurt AJ from their first fight as pros. How much will that help him going into this, despite coming off those not great results for him?
Yeah, he'll be aware that, especially with people like myself talking about Joshua, that you got to put on to make him panic. When a guy's not quite mentally quite there yet, or not quite sure where he belongs anymore. And I'm not this monster anymore. I'm more of a thoughtful fighter. Put panic on him early, make him question himself, and I think White's the perfect fighter to do that. I would say about White though as well is that I think he's lost a step or two, probably two, and so when you're sharp and young, the way he fights, you're dangerous because you're erratic, you're hard to read, and those swinging shots, he fully commits to every punch. Because he's so young and fast with it, he'll come back with another shot, put himself back on target, on line, and give himself good balance. But he's always a threat. When you start to lose a step, those frailty, what used to be dangerous, becomes dangerous for you because those you can see those shots coming, the opponent can, and all of a sudden then you not having good fundamentals becomes massively exposed, and then you're a target to be hit. And that's where Joshua has to believe in himself. It's all about, with Joshua, all believing in himself. Dillian Whyte doesn't have that issue because he's prepared to get knocked out. He's always been that way. I'm in a fight. Do you think you're going to win? He's always like, well, I do, but he's a bit like Chisora in that way, where he just go, well, I know I can get knocked out because we're in the business with big guys, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to try and knock him out. I'm going to go for it, and we love him for that, and we want to watch him fight for that. But also, he can get caught and get the result at the same time with that. But I think for someone like Joshua who punches right down the line, a White in this stage of his career should suit Joshua if he's committed. If he's not committed, he's in trouble. I think if he's wary with the jab and White just comes over with a big right hand and it catches him, then I can't see how Joshua recovers from that. He's in trouble. He'll panic. He won't know what to do. All those ghosts of Ruiz and even Usyk, where where he lost himself a little bit, didn't know how to win the fight. That'll all compound on him. I think he overthinks stuff. That's what I would say, Anthony Joshua. But if he can be positive and strong and right down the centre of the line, a Dillian Whyte of this generation, this age now, would be just what he needs.
Let me ask you about the other major heavyweight fight taking place in August, and that's Oleksandr Usyk defending his belts against Daniel Dubois. Not a lot of people giving Dubois a great shot in this fight, perhaps understandably, looking at who he's fought and who Usyk's fought. But what does he have to do if he is going to win the fight? Tough question.
It is. Well, what every bigger guy has to do, you have to exert yourself on him physically, but Chisora tried that and he couldn't do it. No, Joshua tried that and he couldn't do it twice. And I can't see how Dubois can. And people always go, well, but if he catches him, and that's what you say about any fighter. I mean, literally any big guy, not even going to be a boxer. If he catches you, he can hurt you. But if Joshua couldn't do it and Chisora couldn't do it, I just can't see how Dubois can do it. But he does have to be positive behind the jab, try and stop the movement of Usyk somehow. And just be as physical as he can be. You just got to commit and go for it. I think that's much, but I think it's a guy like Usyk who doesn't box the same way as he boxes as a cruiserweight, where he forces pressure with the front foot, block and counter off that. He moves more around the target, and that movement, when you're not used to someone moving around the target as he like a semicircle around your body, and you're constantly looking, and that changes your regulation of your breathing. And when that happens, that's when you start to tire out. And you big guys, you notice it quicker. The tank empties quicker because they're bigger lumps and they're looking to throw and they're loading up and they're tensing up because they're not quite sure what he is. They're trying to commit and be sharper. But once you get tenser, it affects you physically and you tire out more and he makes you miss. And making you miss for anyone, it's only superseded by being hit for tiring you out, missing punches.
And demoralising.
Yeah, well, it is meant to everything about it. Yeah, but when you're 18 stone, you've got to pull that arm back every time it empties your tank, and that's what he does. He won't rush it. This fight goes into 6 rounds, easy. Unless Dubois knocks him out, because Usyk won't commit until he sees Dubois knackered, and that'll be his focus: to just move around the target, pick up the rounds without doing too much, but making him constantly work hard, like he did as a cruiserweight, but in a different method. He did a cruiserweight. You seen the Tony Bellew fight. It looked like Tony Bellew was in the fight, but actually, well, it did. He's having a good go. But actually, Usyk was just making him work really hard, blocking everything mostly, really, and nicking around or making the rounds close. But Tony was busting the gut, and Usyk was just floating. And he did that. It didn't quite do that against Joshua because the physical size is a worry. But he does that by moving him more, but just making you miss, tiring you out, and then he goes to work then from like 7-8 rounds to the end, and skates away. And I think if he doesn't stop Dubois late, he wins easily on points. But I think Dubois will commit and have a go. But at some point around 7, 8, 9 rounds, maybe 10, he feels lost, and he's hit from all angles, and he gets stopped, or towel comes in in that scenario. Yeah.
Barry, always a pleasure, mate. Really appreciate it.